Hello everyone and welcome to the Council of Elrond. I'm Dave and I'm joined by my brother and co-host Johnny. On the Council of Elrond we talk all things Lord of the Rings, the Silmarillion and general Tolkien lore. But on today's episode we are of course going to be discussing episode 3 of the Rings of Power. Now before we get into it, I'd like to say thank you very much to all of our patrons and a special thank you to Jack Knightley. If anyone wants to check out our Patreon page, you can head on over. The links will be in the description below. But we'd like to announce as well that we are covering the House of the Dragon, the new Game of Thrones TV show, and so we'll be doing reviews on each episode there. So thank you very much. And also don't forget to check out our YouTube page and give us a like and a subscribe and all the goody goods there. So let's get straight into the episode, John.
Sure. Also, we should mention that this is the first time we've actually recorded together in person. We're not Zoom calling or any other sort of online platform. We're actually, physically in the same room. Live. And it's very exciting.
Yeah, very good. This is cool. Welcome to the studio. We have Sting up here. I don't know if you can see it. And we also have a bunch of Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, Children of Hurin, Tolkien books.
Just to feel in the mood.
Yes.
To talk Tolkien. Right, anyway, we're going to get into episode 3. And we're going to do this episode not going through it minute by minute. We're going to break the episode down into the 3 main areas and main storylines that were discussed. So those 3 areas would be, of course, Numenor, Arondir and the Southlands, and then the Harfoots, whatever they were getting up to. And I think, Dave, we're going to start off just talking about the probably the shortest storyline and maybe the storyline that didn't really move that much, which would be the Harfoots. So I kind of want to get it out of the way, and then we'll get into Orcs and Arondir and Numenor and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So the Harfoots, it kicks off. We see they're in this kind of festival thing. They've all got these nice headdresses on. It looks kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And they're marching around and they're singing that nobody goes off trail and nobody walks alone.
Oh, yeah.
Do. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I liked the vibe. I thought it was all right. But then they do leave people behind, which is like
very cutthroat from the Harfoots. I found. Very interesting. I did not expect that from them, but I liked it. I really liked that kind of thing that they all have to fear all the time, is like not being left behind.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty brutal, all right. I mean, it does show you the kind of brutality of the world that they all live in. And I think that's not just in the Harfoots. We saw a lot of brutality in the world of Middle-earth as well in this episode.
Yeah, definitely this episode.
Which is really cool. And I'm all for the violence and the blood and the grit that is involved in this world, because it's not a safe place.
No, it is not.
There's dangerous things afoot. So dangerous things a Harfoot. We see Nori's parents having a chat, and we kind of find out a little bit about their backstory. We find out, I didn't know this, maybe they brought this up before, that the mother that I thought it was is maybe not actually Nori's mother, that's his second wife.
Yeah.
What's his name? Is his name like Lando?
Yeah, it is.
Is it Lando?
It's Lando?
I don't know.
It is like
Lando.
That
was like Star Wars. So they're having a little chat, and that's nice. You get a little bit of their backstory. He's
what's he saying? He's talking about like the mother, and then he's like,
because he says, when I lost,
some name,
Rosemary or something. When I lost her, I thought the wheels had fallen off
the cart. Yeah. And then he's like, but that same day I saw you, and you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. I was like, all right.
Oh yeah. So we're learning a bit more about the Harfoots. They don't grieve for too long. Yeah.
No, they do not.
They move swiftly on, like we're going to do now. So moving on. They obviously then they have that chat as well at the same time when they're looking at his ankle. It's like, it's still not looking great. It was broken yesterday. It hasn't been healed in one day.
No.
So they talk about this fear of being left behind, which was the first time that came up really, and that was a kind of a cool thing. We obviously see it later on a little bit more. But they say, look, don't worry, here's the plan. We're going to make sure that we stay at the front of the caravan and everything's going to be grand. And then we get this whole little sequence of Nori sneaking into the little hut of Sadok and stealing the pages with the stars and all that kind of stuff, which was kind of fun. But again, I was kind of like, I was like, oh, right.
Yeah, it was one of those childish kind of scenes.
A little bit too childish, yeah. And again, I know that they are supposed to be the kind of childish and the humor of the show, but it was a little bit too much for me. I found it was a little bit the humor of, oh, you're right.
I loved that. I was going to say that was the one thing that I really liked, because it took me like maybe 2 hints before I knew what was going on. Where she was like, what's going on right over there? Or something. Then she was like,
do you have much time left? How much do you have left?
And then when she was just like straightforward, and I was like, oh, that's funny. That's brilliant.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't too bad, but just the whole I mean, if you're hiding from someone under their table and they're in the same room, it would never occur to you to just stick your hand out and start rooting around on the table. Like, I mean, that's a terrible thing.
Thinking your hand is going to like smell whatever page you need.
So I thought that was a bit weird. But anyway, that happened. We'll move on. But Sadok, he must be like some serious astronomer, because I mean, he's got a huge, big, fat book full of just maps of the skies and the stars. So I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think the promotional footage and images that came out of him, everyone kind of thought he was going to be that crazy old fool, but he's actually like the respected scholar amongst the Harfoots, and he seems to actually know more than he should. Like, I don't know if you're going to bring it up here, but he makes a reference to Eärendil when he really probably shouldn't know about, a man turning into a star. So like, but it's kind of like the Harfoots shouldn't know this, but he seems to be like above their level, and maybe it's like a bit of magic at work where he's just like smarter and he knows more about the world than he should, and I just like that.
No, I agree, and I think that we found that out in episode 1 as well, and I was really relieved in episode 1 when I saw that he was this kind of like he was the leader, and when he said the whole "disguise of strange" thing, that in the promotional things that we saw, it looked like he was just some nut job.
Yeah, and he was like retreating into his hut, but actually everyone respects his opinion, and he seems to be the leader, right?
Yeah, and I just think he's doing phenomenally well as well. Yeah, I really like his accent as well, which is something that I can't say for all the Harfoots, but I like his. I thought I've liked Nori's accent for the last couple of episodes. In this one, she was going off a little bit. She was pronouncing her T's a bit too clearly now for my liking.
Yeah, but even her like very first line of the whole series, where she's like, sure, if we didn't do anything we weren't supposed to do, we wouldn't do anything at all.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
It's a little bit like...
Yeah, it's a little bit too much. Anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah.
No, I do like how you mentioned that as well. How Sadok later on, he mentions basically a little nod, a little wink towards Eärendil when he speaks about, I've never heard of someone falling from the stars. I've heard of people turning into the stars and stuff. And I was like, oh, is that what he's talking about?
Yeah.
But you're like, how would he know about that? Sure,
he wouldn't know about that. But then again, it might be just, he's a wise old fool. He might have heard, maybe he's not talking about Eärendil.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I think it's just an Easter egg for us.
Yeah,
that's all it is, I think, really. But anyway,
it's cool.
Then he gives his speech, Sadok, and again, I think this immediately reminded me of Bilbo's speech.
Yeah, definitely. Because he kind of goes, my fellow Harfoots.
Yeah, it's just like only that line. And they all went like, hey! And they like lifted their cups and they cheersed with their
hard
tails.
feet.
So that immediately reminded me of Bilbo.
Yeah.
But then he went on and actually gave a very nice speech, and it was really heartfelt, and he was talking about all the people that they'd left behind. And that was really sad when we kind of found out that Poppy's whole family were just wiped out in a mudslide.
Yeah, I didn't really notice it until like she started crying, and I was like, oh, she must have liked this family. And I was like, oh.
Why is she sitting on her own?
Why doesn't she talk to her dad about this?
Yeah.
No, that was sad. That was
just really
because
sad.
I didn't remember her name or her surname, at the time. So I was like, oh, right, that's who she is. Okay, yeah, that was sad.
It was hard, but like, it was hard to remember all their surnames and things like that as well.
I forget her name. What is it?
Poppy.
Poppy Proudfellow.
I don't know. I've forgotten already.
But the family name, like, I forget what
I think Proudfellow, I think you might be right.
Proudfellow,
Yeah, so, again, we don't need to remember that they're all dead.
Yeah. Hopefully she'll die too, so I don't remember that family name ever.
So that was sad. That was a definite tearjerker moment. Even though we didn't even know this family, we were just like, oh, that's sad. And I just thought the actress did it really well, just the way she was kind of tearing up, but she even held it together a bit, and she was like, that thing that they all said, like, we wait for you.
Yeah.
I thought that was nice. But then it was also
they
like...
didn't wait for them. They didn't wait for you.
Yeah.
We'll wait for you now after death.
Yeah.
But not back when
Now
you
that we're
got
sitting
killed
down-
in an avalanche or whatever.
Now that we're sitting down with a beer in our hand, we'll wait for you. We're over here. Why haven't you come? All right, we didn't wait for you at the time.
And that was very unfortunate that some poor Harfoot died by a bee.
I was just going to say that.
And they all just kind of laughed and they were like, what an Egypt.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah. They were like, we all loved him, but he's a bit of an Egypt.
Bit of an Egypt. So if anyone
thought that was
doesn't
great.
know, Egypt is a very common Irish slang insult here, and it's not very insulting. It's just kind of a fun way to say you big idiot or something like that. But did you watch it with the subtitles on? Because they spelled Egypt wrong. Which
There's two different ways to spell it.
is there?
Yeah.
It's not the Irish way.
I don't know. I didn't like it too much either.
No. Didn't like.
Anyway, regardless, that was fun. I liked hearing just in Tolkien's world someone calling someone else an Egypt. That was actually really good. And then after that, we get the stranger who appears in the camp, and again, a bit confusing because the last time we saw him, it looked like he was miles away, and she had to run ages out of her camp to go and get to him, where she hid himself. But suddenly now he's in the camp. We haven't seen how that happened, but he's there, and he kind of does again this kind of big, clumsy giant act of just kind of falling around the place, and
Bit like Gandalf. Do you know, in Bag End, he's just clumsy. He's banging
but it's not like he's like trapped by material and
of
clothes.
I'm just trying to find more Gandalfisms that they could be hinting
there
at.
was plenty of them.
Yeah.
We'll get to more. So he's also he came from this flaming meteor.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these fire connections, fireflies. He just clearly doesn't know how fire works.
No,
because he's like, I'm going to put this paper in the fire to read the map.
Yeah,
and it just goes on
he just
fire.
doesn't know how anything works really.
And also, to be fair, the flames that were around him when he arrived they didn't give off any heat, so they weren't hot.
True.
So maybe this is the first time he's actually experienced real fire. But anyway, that happened, and so obviously then they all discover the stranger, and Sadok has to say, "Look, you're what's the other one? Is it Marva?
Marigold?
No, like." It's like Marva or Merva.
Oh, okay, yeah. I know her.
She pipes up and she's like, okay, well, you've disobeyed, blah blah blah. So now you're excommunicado. You're out of here. You're to bring in a bit of John Wick.
Yeah.
You should be decaravaned, I think is the term that she uses.
Yeah.
So but then Sadok says, look, she's only young. I liked his little line about she doesn't have that much hair on her feet. Or something like that.
Not as much hair on her feet as sits between her ears. Something like that. Yeah, that was good. I'm liking him more and more.
I do like Sadok. He's cool. And so he says they will be coming with us during the migration, but they'll be at the back of the line, and that's
death sentence.
Basically a death sentence. Yeah, so the
horrible.
She's like, what she says. The line she says that's like signing our names on the left behind list. Which is kind of like it's
cool.
Harsh.
It is harsh.
Well,
harsh foot. Yeah, it is very harsh foot. Like,
but that just means that if there's any
wait, do you mean harsh for Nori or just harsh for their family?
It's harsh on the family, but it's harsh by Sadok. He's like, she's only young. Look, we let them go, but we'll basically kill them.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, look, you won't be getting any extra protection.
Yeah,
you'll be at the back.
Which
I think is fair enough.
You have to learn from this, because I thought it was just going to be like, look, we let them off this, and it is it's a one-off kind of situation where some giant fell from the stars. It's not just a typical thing that they would.
I also think that scene was. I don't think I really got what was going on when Poppy was crying at the campfire. I think it was when I saw her carrying the cart on her own. I was like, oh, where's her family? Oh, I think it was kind of.
Really?
Well, maybe. Oh. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I watched it early this morning and I'm absolutely wrecked. So I can't remember where things started to make sense in my head. But yeah, she was carrying a cart on her own.
We're still waiting for that day. Anyway, we cut to migration day the following day, and obviously Nori and her family are really struggling. And also because they probably got a huge load of extra weight in the caravan that they didn't realise because the stranger's just stuck on board.
Is that where he was?
I think so, because I
thought so, yeah.
Because I watched it twice, and the second time I watched it, I was like watching to see if he comes up from behind, and he doesn't. It's like the caravan starts wobbling, and I'm like, they must have realised this is really, really heavy. a giant in this tiny car.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I thought at first
So-
he was just pushing it from behind. That was what was wobbling it. But yeah, maybe he was
Maybe
just
it is.
having
Maybe
a
I
nap.
don't know. Yeah, it looked like he just snuck in. He was like, "Stop moving! I'm having a little snooze."
Yeah.
So, but anyway, he appears and he comes out and he says,
Nori.
no.
Friend.
Exactly. He said-
Melon.
yeah, because he said Nori once as well when he first appeared in the camp, and they were all like looking at him. He was like, Nori. So he has a couple of words already.
The only thing he could do is rat out the person in the
yeah,
camp.
exactly. They're like, whose fault is this? Nori.
Yeah.
He could even say it in sign language. He'd be like, if he wanted as well. So they're like, it's definitely Nori's fault. And then he comes out and he says, friend. So anyone who's been online saying it's definitely Gandalf, it's looking like it could be that way. And I don't know how I feel about that because I don't want it to be Gandalf.
I didn't make that connection, the friend and Gandalf thing, but yeah, I see it.
Oh, yeah.
Look, hopefully red herrings.
Yeah, hopefully it's a red herring. And there's a lot of red herrings that they're throwing around in the show as well. There's a lot of, misdirection.
Mr. and misdirection. Sorry.
Right, okay, that was way too much on the
Harfoots.
The Harfoots. Or the harsh foots, or the not very hard foots, the weak foots when
Yeah, when it comes to
ankle
Lando,
Yeah.
or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we're going to move on, and we're now going to look at the Southlands and Arondir and the orcs. The first look, this is where the episode actually opens up as well. So the whole episode opens up with kind of that. I think we saw this clip from in some of the promotional trailers where we get like a kind of a blurry view of a kind of a groggy Arondir who's been knocked out and he's coming to, and he's been dragged through these tunnels that the orcs have built, and we see they have captured other humans and they're all in cages, and then we actually come out and we see that they've also captured some of Arondir's company and the men that he was with in the tower, which was quite unexpected, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to see any more elves in there, so that was...
I thought he would be the only one. From the footage that we got in the trailers, I thought he was the only one that was captured.
Yeah, that was really cool. But also, what was really cool was at the very beginning, while he's being dragged out, you hear these voices of some orcs saying, they say, who should anchor him? And then they say, toss him out with the others. And it's like these two orcs arguing, and one guy goes, I had sun duty yesterday, you do it.
Oh,
and it's like,
cool.
it's really cool. It's like, just immediately, like, first of all, before we go any further, the orcs, they're doing everything right with the orcs, and I think this is one of my favourite things so far in the show. I've got a lot of favourite things, but this is one where, and again,
just the orcs in general.
The orcs in general,
Yeah.
but also that was before the show even kicked off. That was one of the strongest things promotionally.
That was where the
as well.
marketing shifted. That was
Exactly.
before the two big trailers, yeah. And
that was
they
the
just-
first thing that people started to kind of say,
around
actually, maybe they've got it right.
Yeah. And I think in this episode, this is the first time we hear them talk, and I loved it. They kind of still have the Cockney accent, and it's also just like their voices are really harsh, and just brought me back to Lord of the Rings again, but they just look so terrifying as well. The makeup, and special shout out to Jed Brophy as well.
Yeah.
My man Jed, you can see him clearly as that guy with the skinny guy that like holds up the knife and goes, eh.
He was like the thumbnail of one of the trailers.
Yeah.
He was class. Yeah, we taught him everything he knows. So he was class in it, yeah. But also just the fact that like the practical effects, like come on, practical effects are so good, and just I don't know, everything about them is so good. I loved how they were also like individual as well, and even going back to the Peter Jackson movies, there was a lot of variation, but I feel like there's even more variation. We're getting to see like real. Just they all have their own individuality and
appearance wise,
appearance wise, and like they're all wearing different stuff that they've just kind of put together. This helmet, exactly.
No, it was cool. I thought as well, just like in between their speech, they were doing a lot of what they did in Peter Jackson's movies as well, where they'd just be like, lots of roars, and you're just like, that's so cool. Like.
Yeah, it is class. Also, this is one of the first times we actually get to see orcs kind of like with a lot of light, because in Peter Jackson's movies, there's a lot of times we're seeing them and it's kind of dark. You don't get a good look at them, and obviously we shouldn't get a good look at the orcs in daytime because they hate the sun. But I think they did it in a cool way where it's daytime and they have these like rags overhead, kind of like in some Moroccan marketplace or something, and the sun's kind of coming through, but obviously they're completely trying to shelter from that, and they all have these big, huge things that they wrap around their heads as well, and they have those big like skull kind of things or bones that they put on their heads as well. So definitely really big plus for showing, well, first of all, practical effects, the look of the orcs, the sound of the orcs, and giving the general viewer information about how orcs hate the sunlight, and not just that they hate it, but they actually can't be out in the sunlight because it's like it burns their skin. That's maybe why they have these big burns on them every now and again, and that's also maybe one of the reasons why they have to tunnel from village to village, because they can't just walk during the day, and they have to try and get from camp to camp. So they're sneaking up on people, but at the same time they're staying out of the sun. Yeah. And now that they've got loads of people and loads of slaves, they don't have to do any of the digging. They're just making them do the digging, so it's fine. So
exactly. And as well, it's also good to note that these orcs are different to the orcs that we see in the Third Age. The ones in the Third Age, so in the Lord of the Rings movies and The Hobbit, they're much more stronger. They don't like the sun, but the sun doesn't physically burn them. So I think the showrunners talked about how these orcs are almost like baby orcs. They're like fresh newborns into this world, and they're literally being scarred and burned by the sun. So and that is cool. I didn't pick up on that where the orc said I had or sun duty. No, I don't think I did.
Yeah,
but that's really cool. I like that. It's a pain or it's an extra duty to go out and be in the sun.
Yeah, the second time I watched it, I watched it with subtitles on, so you could hear, you could just pick up on other things that you may have missed as well. So that's kind of a good tactic as well. Also,
quite cool.
We get the first mention of Adar.
Oh
here,
yes,
and the orcs, they're again, it was in that thing where they were saying like, oh, I don't want to go out in the sun because I did that yesterday, and then he's like, well, not for you then, for Adar. And he's like, okay, for Adar. And they're like almost like speaking about him, this kind of like reverence, and I think I'm using the word reverence because that's what one of the elves said in the episode as well. He said that they speak about him with reverence, as if orcs could have that emotion or something. I can't remember exactly, but he said something like that. It's the older of the two colleagues or comrades of Arondir.
The fallen comrades.
Yeah. So then Arondir, of course, he goes out and he finds that his soldiers have been imprisoned as well, along with all the humans, and I suppose they're the ones that they just collected when they've been going village to village. And obviously we saw one village that was in last week's episode that had been burned and they'd taken all the people captive, but I'm assuming they've probably done that throughout the whole lands of the Southlands, and they'd be taken just going village by village.
Yeah,
we don't know how many people they have. They could have a huge number, but that's cool. But then we get on to the water scene, where where basically
that was tense.
Well, yeah, I should go to the tree scene. I don't know how to go, but basically they're tunneling along, and finally they come and there's a tree that's in the way, and the elves, of course, they are lovers of beauty and nature, and for them a tree
all things that grow,
like hobbits, I suppose.
Yeah.
They think of trees like living beings and living things, and also they're ancient things. They've been around for so long, so they respect them. So they don't want to just chop down this tree. That's almost like killing another person. So they were like, let's just go around the tree. The orcs are like, no, you have to go through it. And they stand up to the orcs and they say, no, this tree has earned its place in the world, which is a really cool thing as well, I thought to say. And then how do the orcs react, Dave?
They didn't react very well, Jonathan. Not at all.
Well, they tricked us.
Well, they kind of tricked us, yeah. I don't really remember what they did about that. Was that when they did the water thing?
Yeah, because
he said like, I like your spirit or whatever.
Your strength, or you're strong, or
and he was like, you can have some extra rations of water, and so and then they were like, this is definitely poison, and I don't know, I thought maybe it was going to be some sort of poisonous grog, and then the first guy has it. Then when Arondir had it, I was like, okay, it's not poison. But then the third boy, he got a swipe to the neck, and there was something I wanted to say about that scene. This guy gets cut in the throat, and I was like, oh my god.
Did you see the...
No.
Go on.
Okay, well, what I was going to say was he gets sliced in the throat, and first of all, that was like the first bit of kind of gory action we've seen from the 3 episodes, I think. But I was carefully looking at his throat to see, was it going to start spewing blood? Yeah. Because that's what normally happens in movies and TV shows when someone cuts the throat. And it wasn't. And I was like, oh, so this is just not going to be a very bloody, gory thing. But then we see that changes later in the episode with other things, which I won't bring up yet.
No, but I would say that I thought it was really cool because, well, first of all, what I was going to say was that when you watch that scene again, the guy is taking a mouthful of water and suddenly the orc just kind of goes, hurrah! Almost like a Bilbo kind of thing, like that kind of. And it's very reminiscent of that actually because the music swells up as well, and it makes this like really loud impact noise. So it kind of just shocks you from like an audible point of view as well, and then also he just kind of like swipes, and you don't really you know exactly in that first second what's happened, and also it shows the guy so that he's drinking from this tank of water, and the lid is attached to the tank via a string, and the string is dangling, and he's drinking, and when he slices it, the string gets cut, and so you see a close up of his neck, and you just see the string being cut and falling, and then you see this cut just open in his neck, and then, as you said, it doesn't start spewing blood, but the cut you do see it's in super slow motion because you see this string falling, and you see the cut just opening up, and I thought that was, and then of course he just grabs his neck and covers it and then falls down. And the next scene you see his blood all on his hand. And
okay, that makes sense. Maybe when I was watching it, I didn't realise it was in slow motion because I didn't pick up on the falling string in slow-mo. But I'll have to check that out again. That was cool. I wanted to say as well about that tree thing. I thought that was an interesting line as well. I really loved the elves defending the tree actually because I think mainstream audiences might be like, well, what the hell? This is just some stupid tree. Cut it down. And maybe they're just too lazy or whatever, but I really liked how the elves defended it, and they said, I think Arondir said something like, this tree has been around a lot longer than wherever ye festered from, or something.
Yeah, wherever ye crawled out of.
Yeah, whatever, disgusting place.
It was the older guy, I think.
Okay, yeah, but
the guy that was the moment when they were standing up to the orcs, and then the orc was like, "You are showing strength. You've earned your ration."
The poor, he got away with it, and then they just killed their friend.
Do you know what it reminded me of? I'm not sure if you're a big fan of Peaky Blinders.
I've seen the first 3 seasons.
Okay. I think it's in season 1 where the Jew Alfie, who's played by what's his name, Hardy.
Oh, yeah, Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. Love his performance in that show as well.
Yeah, can't understand a word he says.
It's like, yeah, exactly. I love it. I have no idea what he's saying, and that makes him even more scary. So there's, I think it's his introduction scene maybe where there's these men that are starting to work for him, and he's there giving this little talk of what they need to do, and basically some guy cracks, it's a very tense situation, and some guy cracks a joke, and Alfie walks up to him. He's got this stick in his hand. He just kind of stares at him, and he just absolutely whacks the guy standing right beside him and knocks him out cold in one blow. And he's knocks out all his teeth, and he goes, "The last thing that guy's going to remember is your funny little joke." It's I don't know, just a way of, just so intimidating that you just smash the guy beside you.
Yeah, no, it is. I've seen that in a few movies. It's like every time you don't do what you're told, I'm going to kill one of these people. Yeah. Do you know, that kind of thing.
I mean, it's a good tactic if you care about somebody that's beside you. And it was in Peacemaker as well.
Oh, right.
Where, but Peacemaker was like, I don't care.
I was thinking more of Batman, The Dark Knight, the second one.
That happens in loads of stuff.
Yeah,
here all day.
We've got.
So, it reminded me of that. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, the older guy got away with it initially. He got his comeuppance eventually.
Oh, he did.
But also in that scene, the orcs mentioned that or somebody mentions that they think that the orcs are looking for a weapon. They're digging for a weapon.
Yeah, I immediately thought that it's the sword. Yeah, right.
Yeah, what else could it be?
Yeah, they were looking for some sort of weapon, and they're in the Southlands, and that's where the weapon is.
Yeah, it's got to be that.
I don't know. Yeah, we didn't really. Was it episode 1 where he just had the sword in his basement, Theo? It was so random.
It was really random. They didn't explain that. But I'm hoping that that'll get developed later on, because what he said was Theo brought his friend over, and then they opened up the floorboards, and his friend said that rascal has the king's treasure down there, or something like that. So something to that effect. Basically meaning whoever owned all this stuff had a hoard of stuff down there in this little underground storage area.
Yeah.
And
I just thought that was Theo's house, but
and
it's not, obviously.
No, it mustn't be because... Well, unless you're saying the old rascal, maybe they're saying Theo's father.
That's what
we don't know. Maybe it was Theo's father.
Adar, which means father. Maybe that's Theo's dad.
Does it mean father?
I think so. I think Adar. I think some people said that it loosely translates to father in Elvish. That was another thing they mentioned in the episode as well. They said, why do they use the Elvish tongue?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
cool. I think Adar is like father, and that's kind of like their way of showing him respect. Is like he's a father-like figure to the orcs.
Ah, okay. He's their daddy.
He's their daddy. But yeah.
So that happened. So, yeah, exactly. That was the next thing I had in my notes here, which is like they're saying, why are they using an Elvish word for their leader? And then that's when one of the, again, I think it's like Renovin or something like that. The older guy, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
He says that, well, Sauron goes by many names, and so we're supposed to be like, Adar is Sauron. And it's like, it's way too obvious. I'm not buying it, guys.
No.
Yeah, so, again, also, if Adar is an elf, then he's not going to be one of the Nazgul. Because the Nazgul are men.
Why do you think Adar is an elf?
I think we were told, like, weren't we?
I wasn't told. Were you told?
Did you miss the memo?
I don't think
was
so.
that not? Maybe I've invented this. But I thought.
No, I'm pretty sure it was. Like on Fellowship of Fans, it was leaked that they follow a man.
Maybe I just. Yeah, maybe I'm just misremembering it. Yeah.
Remembering it.
Stop it right now. Right. So, what happens next?
Release the hounds.
Oh, yeah. Release the Kraken. Hang on, anything else before we need to get to that? So, I was going to say, I'm all over the place. Sorry, I'm barely looking at these notes properly. So, the scene also when they cut your man's throat, when they're drinking the water, it's like, one of the reasons I thought it was so good that they built the tension was that this show it's doing so well with the music and putting the music in the background, and there's always this backdrop of music.
Yeah, okay.
And as soon as they started drinking the water and passing it around, it was silence.
Yeah.
And it was like,
that's true.
You don't really notice the silence until it's there.
Yeah.
Then that's a good sign of how they're using the music in the series, that you don't, like, it's not in your face, the music, but then once it's not there, you're like, something feels off.
Yeah, that's
and then,
so true.
So when they were drinking and it was like, you could hear them like, glugging on the water, you're like, something's not right. I'm feeling very tense right now.
Yeah.
And so that was a cool use as well that I wanted to just bring up. So let me see anything else here. Also, one other thing was when the guy actually slices your man's neck, the first shot that it shows is Jed Brophy's orc being shocked. He's like,
oh really?
Yeah, he's got this big, like he's taken aback. He's like, oh my god, that was very violent. So
like, this is my second day on the job.
Yeah, so he's just like, what's going on? So he's pretty shocked by that. But then anyway, after that, Arondir is just like, okay, I'll cut down the tree. And then he goes up and he gets to have a little look around, which is what they were planning on doing before. Anyway, he looks around and he sees that the whole place is just a complete wasteland. There's these kind of like green fumes coming out of the place. And
I liked that. I like the look of that. I don't know what's going on, but I like it.
That's how I feel about most things. Like, what's going on?
I don't know what I'm looking at half the time, but I'm like, I enjoy this. I actually really enjoyed that whole set. Because I think, again, from the trailers, it just looked like a boring scene when they showed Arondir jumping and hitting the thing.
Was class.
But the set just looks so cool and so real. And then you might get into it later when they get above and they see your man get shot. Like, just looking around there, I actually paused that for a while and just had to look around to see everywhere.
A few times in this episode I had a little pause. And I had a little, what's going on over there now?
Yeah, that was nice. I enjoyed it.
That was good. So then we... So then Arondir starts chopping down the tree, but not before he says something in Elvish to the tree, and I heard some people online saying that he is apologising to the tree for what he has to do to it. So that's, again, very Elven. And I'm liking Arondir more and more.
Yeah.
I really like him now. I think he's one of my favourite characters. I think he's class.
Yeah, he's in the top 20 in his movie.
Yeah, he's up there. Yeah, he's up there. He's just after...
no, he is cool. I really enjoyed
mother, whatever her name is.
Who?
Nori's stepmother.
Oh, that one. Eleanor? No, that's Nori.
Eleanor Rigby. Is it? Oh,
Nori is like...
Nori.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I get
But then they introduce some feckin' like every time I think that I know her name, they introduce a middle name.
Yeah.
What was it? It was like Eleanor Kingsfoyle.
No. It was. I saw somebody say something online about that as well.
Was
it was the actress's name, but backwards.
Markella. Oh.
So Markella, it was like
I reckon.
Calamella.
Markella.
No, it was like Camelic or something like that. It was basically her exact name muddled up, but there was an extra K. I was like, well, it's not exactly. So I was like, if her name's Markella.
I think it's Markella. Markella Kavanagh.
It was like Carmelic or something like that. Eleanor Carmelic.
I think it did begin with a K.
It did, because it starts and ends with a K because I looked it up online.
Kayak.com.
Yeah. Sponsor us. So what else goes on? Then they cut away, but we're gonna and then we're gonna come back to we're gonna get through all this Southland scene before we go on to Numenor. So we cut back, and the next time we come back to the scene is when Arondir and the other elves and all the people that are there, they've obviously come up with a little plan to attack these orcs, and it kind of just cuts back to the scene, and we see Arondir kind of bending over, and the other guy runs up and like puts his hand on his back, jumps, and does like spinning like scissors kick with his leg, and like whips the chain, and it smacks the orc in the face. That was class.
Loved it. Yeah.
I've heard some people complaining about the orcs are doing too much, and I'm like, more of that.
Really? About this episode?
This one and previous ones as well.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm like, look, let him at it.
I loved that whole fight scene, and I loved the way they choreographed everything there with the whole. That was so cool when they were all like smashing the chains. As well. It reminded me of like, was it the dwarves in The Hobbit? I think
when they're hammering.
So it's just a cutaway shot of them hammering, and dwarves at work.
That from?
But they were all doing it in sync, four at the same time, one after the other. Yeah, I love that.
Was that from The Hobbit? Movie?
I think that was The Hobbit.
It could be. I've got the vision in my head, but I just can't place it. So, where are we? That happens. So they start like flicking their chains that are attached to their ankles at the orcs, and they start like hitting them in the face, which was class. I thought it was deadly. If you didn't like it, that's fine, but I personally thought it was cool. And they take down a few of the security guards, or the guards that are on sun duty. So they take them out, and then they form this kind of crisscross with all the chains, and they start doing that like a synchronized smashing the chains. And that's really cool. And then basically one girl gets free, and they've said this, like, if one of us can get free, go make for the tree line, try and go and find help and get all the elves to come back and like wipe these people off the earth. So, and they kind of know that if one guy gets free, then the rest of them might be killed, but they're like saying, like, look, we'll sacrifice ourselves for this, whatever. So it's, it's quite
a greater good,
heroic. But and one guy, or as I said, I think it was a girl or a woman, she gets free and she starts running, and she's nearly up at the top, and then a flying sword takes her down.
Oh, was that a girl? Was it?
I think it was
all right, that was cool. That was another like brutal moment where I was like, oh wow, they're going there. Fair enough.
Yeah, this was a kind of brutal episode.
Yeah, because. Again, I think the first time your man's neck is sliced, that's when I was kind of thinking, okay, it's not going to be too brutal. I just didn't think it was as gory as it could have been. But then when the girl she-elf gets hit by the sword in the back, that comes after other Numenor shots, which we're going to talk about later, which were quite brutal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a brutal episode. Yeah,
it was.
I think so. And
good stuff.
Even in this scene,
exactly. Yeah. So. Then we get this kind of horror scene as the orcs start to, not the warg yet, but as soon as she gets killed, the elves are like, and then the orcs that are still hiding under the shades, they start grabbing the chains and pulling them. And they're just getting like, there's people that are getting dragged into that like area where all the orcs are. And you're like, that's not good for them at all. And they're just like, no.
Well, it starts with the elves trying to pull the orcs out into the sun first.
Is that how it starts?
And then, and then the orcs are pulling back, and then the elves stick their like knife into the ground, and it's like pulled even further. That was a great scene as well.
That was really cool, But obviously, there's only a few elves that are out there, and we can't see how many orcs. There's obviously a whole army of orcs there.
Most of them,
So it's this kind of like tug of war thing going on, and that's when Arondir does a little acrobatics thing, which again we saw a little clip of in the trailer. I didn't know how I felt about it, but when I saw it in this, I was like, this is so cool.
And it makes sense.
And again, we should know as well that elves are basically weightless. They don't have any weight on them at all. That's why we saw in the Fellowship of the Ring, when everybody's wading through the snow, that Legolas was just standing on top of the snow.
Yeah.
So
for the eagle-eyed viewers. And if you also happen to catch that scene of Legolas running up the falling stones.
That's exactly how physics works. But anyway, we won't mention that.
We won't.
After mentioning it.
We'll mention it twice.
Don't do it. So Arondir runs up the chains, and again, he maybe steps on them 3 times. It wasn't this completely crazy, like, maybe he does some.
I thought I could do it. Like,
maybe he does some,
I was like, I could do that.
Walking. Yeah, I could do it too. I did it.
That was me.
So he runs up and then he does this big swing with his axe. And in the trailer, I always thought he was going to try and hook it onto something and like use it for leverage and swing.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what it looked like was going to happen. But he just takes out the whole beam that's holding up all of their covering. And so that crashes down. And again, it's not like total destruction. It just takes out about maybe, 10 meters of tunneling, like the roof of the tunnel.
And all that. Yeah. It was purely just to crash the tunnel
again,
down.
it was just kind of to scatter them and again kind of confuse them and like get them out in the sun. And that was really cool. Like, it was clever. And again, he had to kind of think on his toes there. And run on his toes. So
like a hardfoot at a urinal. You had to be on his toes.
So then that happens, and that's when the guy says, I love how he says, he goes, release the warg.
Yeah.
And it's like, you took like 5 seconds to say the word warg there. Like, but anyway.
The what? The warg.
The warg. Yeah.
Maybe that's just how it's said. It's not supposed to be warg. Maybe that's another word.
Maybe if they're like, release the warg, they're like, I'm sorry, come again?
Exactly. The warg.
Yeah. Now I get you.
You mean, ooh.
No, back in the throat. Shout out to Monty Python. So, what, you can take it from here. What do you think of the whole warg thing?
Right. So this was definitely, in my opinion, we haven't talked yet.
No.
This is the worst CGI that the show has had so far, I thought. Just for the entrance of the warg, it kind of looked like, I don't know, it looked like a deranged kind of... Do you know what it kind of looked like? It reminded me of the hyenas from The Lion King, where it just came out and its eyes were looking everywhere and its tongue was sticking out and it's like... And it just looked all weird. And I was like, what's going on? It didn't... Because I remember when you saw the shadow of the warg coming out, I was like, will it be more like The Hobbit? Or will it be more like the Lord of the Rings wargs? Because they were completely separate. And then I was thinking maybe it's also going to look like the wolves that we've seen at the Harfoot scenes. And then it just came out and I was like, what the hell is this thing? It looked pure Looney Tunes. But then after that little introduction, when it was actually fighting with Arondir, the CG was much better there.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely.
But like, the good thing about that scene, it reminded me that we were watching a TV show, but then I immediately started thinking of all the previous Numenor shots and the previous 2 episodes, and I just had to say, wow, this is incredible. If this is the first time I'm kind of seeing a jarring CG shot.
Because it's difficult, it's always going to be difficult to shoot a scene with a warg on a TV. I was going to say on a TV show budget. We know that the budget is pretty high. So, but I agree with you completely that this was... I wasn't a huge fan of the initial look of the warg as well. I thought the CG... I don't even know if it was the CG that I didn't like. I just didn't like
design.
I didn't like the design. Yeah, it was like it's almost like there's like kind of... those really ugly dogs that are kind of cute?
Chihuahuas.
No, I don't... Maybe. Sure. I don't know.
Cats. Those really ugly dogs.
Persian cats. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean though, yeah.
Yeah, it was almost like, I don't know, it was almost like this kind of cute warg, but like, maybe it has mental problems or something.
Mental problems, man.
Didn't really like the look of the warg.
No.
And I didn't think that the CG was that bad at the beginning. I think that the CG was bad later when it gets killed.
The tree? No, when it goes into the tree?
No.
Okay.
Alright, we'll go through it step by step. So the warg comes out. First of all, brutal. Takes out a couple of... I think they're both elves, because I was focusing on their ears.
I thought they were all elves. I thought it was only the men that were in the cages.
The warg was an elf. No, I think you might be right, because basically all the people that we see in that scene are all elves. And I think those two people that are killed by the warg, I think they were both elves as well, because definitely the first guy that gets taken down, there's a guy that gets taken down,
brutal,
and then
by
a
the
girl.
way.
Yeah, he gets taken down to the ground and then just like chews his stomach open.
Yeah.
And you're like, right, okay, this is definitely...
You wouldn't see that in any of the Peter Jackson movies. There'd just be like you might see a dirty bite on the arm and someone's pulled away, but like he defeated the elf and then proceeded to munch on his innards, and I was like, okay, Game of Thrones, here we go.
Yeah.
Which I thoroughly enjoyed.
I know, yeah. So the CG there, I think it held up.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think most of it was good, and yeah, maybe the death of the warg might have looked a little bit.
Yeah.
Off as well.
And then so two guys get taken out, but then Arondir, twisty, spinny, over the warg again. I liked it.
Yeah, thought it was cool. Better than, again, every shot that I saw in the trailer, I was kind of, this is weird. But in context, it just works. Like,
yeah, that we saw that one we've seen that one from the trailer, and we've also seen when he grabs the little branch from the tree and he jumps and he stabs the orc in the neck.
Yeah.
We didn't see what he did with it, but we saw him. And again,
exactly,
I didn't know how to feel about that when I saw it in the promotional trailer, but again, I thought it was class.
Yeah, again, that's because we saw the context. He was being pulled. I didn't know, was this some sort of weird weightless maneuver he was doing where he was just flying forward in slow motion? But no, he's being pulled.
And he, instead of resisting, he just goes with it and brings it, like, just cracks a little small branch and shoves it into this orc's neck.
Loved it.
So that was class. And of course, this is... I'm kind of getting confused now if this is before or after, but when the warg comes out anyway, Arondir kind of ends up trapping the warg inside the tree with these kind of chains, and he's holding it there. And while he does that, his other companion breaks his own chain and makes for his escape as well. He looks like he's going to come and try and help Arondir, and Arondir's like, no, go save yourself. Again, cool moment for Arondir, really liking him.
Yeah.
And he legs it off this guy, and then Arondir kind of... it looks like he's about to get eaten by the warg, and Arondir throws a spear as well and kills the warg as well. And again, it's even more heroic, and it's just Arondir's really kicking ass.
Yeah,
that was the scene though when the warg was about to attack your man, and he throws a spear, it hits him, and the warg falls as if he's been hit by a brick wall or by a car. So that's the scene for me that the CG just looked off, because it's like he gets hit with the spear, and it's like he gets hit and then he falls. He gets hit and he gets pushed by the spear. And it's like, this is a huge, enormous muscular animal, like a bull. And a small spear coming into him, yeah, it could kill him, but it's not going to hit him and make him fall like he's been hit by a truck. So that really looked off for me.
We saw the state of the warg, baby. He was on his last legs. He's probably eating some horrible cottage cheese that morning.
He was crossbred, that warg.
That one, yeah.
It was definitely
on the way out.
It's an experiment. They got it right eventually by the Lord of the Rings, but the early wargs, they were like, these wargs don't hold up at all. Anyway, the final part is that, so the warg gets killed, the guy gets away, we're like, oh, he's escaped, he's going to go on war, and then Arondir pokes his head up, and then the guy's just standing there, he turns around, he's got an arrow sticking out of him, and then you're like, Boromir, and then another arrow just gets like flaked into his chest while we're looking at a nice close-up. We get a nice we get a nice while he says, save the little ones,
protect the little ones,
and so then he dies, and then they're about to kill Arondir, and the orc says, wait, let's take him to Adar. And you're like...
and like, why?
Yeah, well, maybe...
Well, he's killed most of our men, so...
Well, maybe for extra horrible punishment.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
I'm assuming that maybe... Or maybe, I don't know, maybe they're like, maybe they can turn him or twist him or something. I don't know, we don't know.
We'll find out, I suppose, in the next episode.
And then, what was kind of annoying is the episode was titled Adar. And the first time he actually appears is just this very final scene where we get this blurry vision of his face. And so I thought he was an elf. I thought that's what I'd heard before the episode even came out. So then when I saw his face, I was like, yeah, he definitely looks like an elf. But we couldn't even see it. Like, I was like, they look like points up here. It's like,
well, you can tell he's not an orc, anyway.
I suppose that's true. So yeah, anything else to add to that? Southland? Southlands.
You mentioned that the episode's called Adar, but I didn't know that until the end when I paused it, and I was like, oh, Adar. Okay, cool. That's the name of the episode. And
I mean, they did mention him a few times in the episode.
well, what I was going to say is that I think at the very first scene, that's when they actually mention him for the first time. They say like, "Oh, do it for Adar."
Yeah.
And then at the very end, they're chanting Adar. So it is kind of nice that it starts and ends
Very nice.
with his name.
Very warm. And
Yeah, it's a very nice name, like father figure. But yeah,
good. So, anyway, now on to the big one.
the Harefoots.
Take two. Our feet.
Now we've got so much more to talk about the Harefoots.
Okay, Numenor. As Elendil likes to pronounce
There is numerous things I want to say about Numenor.
Yeah. I could take Numenor of these puns.
We were introduced to a lot of new men. Or women. Okay, yeah.
So
These
people are
Numenor
rolling
puns.
like, this ore isn't working, I need a Numenor.
Oh,
Right, okay, sorry.
Okay.
Cut that. So, what's his name? Owen, the actor?
Lloyd Owen.
Lloyd Owen.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic.
Wow. Yeah.
Fantastic. So obviously we saw in the previous episode the way it finished, it was like his shadow standing over Galadriel and Halbrand, and they get taken onto the ship, they get saved, and Galadriel wakes up, but she has to first of all ask the people that rescued us, are they captors or whatever the other one is, saviors or captors or something like that.
Our hosts, captors, or savers. I was trying to figure that one out as well. I was like, that's captors. Oh yeah, okay, saviors. Okay,
You don't get it, Dave?
saviors. What the hell does that mean?
They've saved us.
Yeah, but either way, they've saved them anyways.
Yeah, but are they going to continue saving us, or
Or
are they
continue capturing them.
Are we here to be tormented?
Yeah, I know,
Like,
but the two options she gave, if I was Halbrand, I'd be like, is there a third option? Yeah, he just avoided the question. He was like, it's not poisonous if that's what you're wondering.
He was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, that happened. And I always get this feeling when I see a scene of like, you've been out at sea for ages and you're obviously starving and you wake up and it's like, nice warm stew. I'm like, I'd love that.
Yeah.
I'd love that stew.
I'd love that stew.
Even
yeah.
Eowyn stew. I'm like, I'd have a bit of that. You know?
Yeah.
A bit of salt and pepper, I'm sure it'll be fine. You know. Anyway,
Sea salt.
so we obviously get to meet then Lloyd Owen's Elendil for the first time, and man, blown away.
Oh yeah, blown away by his voice, and we saw a little bit of it in the trailers, but oh my god, is it class?
He's dead.
Yeah, let it die.
Yeah, kill it.
Kill it if you have to.
That's not what he says.
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren.
Hashtag Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was so cool. I loved all of his dialogue and all of his scenes. I just absolutely loved.
Yeah,
this.
he's really, really cool. His look, his appearance, his.
Yeah, I don't want to be harsh on the actor about his appearance, but like he really does have that look of just like his face is not clear, like his skin isn't clear, and it seems like he's seen a lot of the sea, and he's just seen a lot of like he's seen shit.
He's seen shit.
But like I don't know what it is about his face, but he just looks like a hardened man. I don't want to be mean to Lloyd. Like you look cool, Lloyd, but yeah, you've seen some shit, man.
Yeah, I mean, bit of face cream. You know, never heard of it. All right.
No. Poor old Lloyd.
So we see him, and then they're like, "Where are we going?" And he's like, "Home." They're like,
when he said, "Where are we going?" I was like, Numenor. And he just goes home. I was like,
because did you see that video? I think it was trending a couple of days ago of Lloyd Owen. It was like all of the times he said Numenor.
Yes, Numenor.
Yeah,
Numenor.
And it starts off with him. Obviously, in some interview, he's like, "Well, actually, you have to roll the final R. It's pronounced Numenor." And then it cuts. It's like him, Numenor. Yeah, and then when it cut, he was like, "Where are we going?" I was like, "Here we go." He's like, "Home." I was like, "Aw." And then they were like, "We don't know where your home is. Will you just tell us where it is?"
Yeah, so, exactly. He was like, "You will see soon."
Yeah, and then we get those introduction shots that we saw in the trailer as well, where they're going through those little entrance area
all the
into
heads,
Numenor. All the heads. We get more close-ups of the heads. We get another close-up of that big statue with the waterfall, possibly Ulmo. I'm getting that kind of a vibe.
Well, I don't know if you have it in your notes, but I thought later maybe just around this time. Well, I think it's the first time you meet Taramiriel, and she says something about like Galadriel, why'd you take her on board? And he says, "The sea is always right." And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was like almost like an Ulmo reference. Like they obviously maybe he doesn't even talk about Ulmo, but like.
Well, they also mentioned the Valar a couple of times in this episode.
Yeah, they do. But I just think that was kind of cool. It was respecting the sea as more than just the sea. It was almost like a god or, whatever the
it
god
was so cool. I loved how they they were like, well, the sea knows what's going on.
Exactly. And the queen is like, why did you do this? It was like, it was the sea's fault.
Yeah, exactly.
The sea told me to do it.
She was like, but the sea can't be charged with treason. He was like, you got me there.
He's like, well, did you try? She's like, touche.
Lock up the sea. That was really class. Those first images, of course, we've seen a lot of them before, but just a little bit more. And I was getting real kind of Mediterranean, kind of Greek almost vibes of the city. There was a lot of blue and white going on, which was really cool.
A lot of blue and white. You were saying Greek and Mediterranean vibes. I thought you were going to talk about Middle Earth, and I got Minas Tirith vibes, obviously, but not just the obvious things. Like there was a lot of those kind of pillars and a lot of those structures that were very Minas Tirith-ian, but there was also just like a lot of shots of smaller little houses in condensed areas, and it just reminded me of the streets of Minas Tirith, which I thought was cool. But also you mentioned like the Greek and I don't know, is it Mesopotamian kind of era, and they definitely bolstered that up with the music that kind of...
Did you Mesopotamia?
I'm so sorry. But like that kind of ancient Greek or Egyptian or Byzantine type music.
Byzantines.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really cool. I love the music intro into seeing this.
I had written that down as well. I said that when the boat comes in, the music, because it was different in the trailer, and this music was so much more like powerful and kind of...
Sure, in the trailer it was, come to me, come. Not when he messing. I'm far away.
What was it called? Oh yeah, Minas Tirith. And we should, like, if people don't know, this is the city that Minas Tirith is inspired by as well. So if you get that kind of similar vibes, well then you're right. That's correct.
Well done.
Correct. Kudos to you. So this is like, Minas Tirith is like a shadow of Numenor. I'm going to say it like that now.
Me too.
Galadriel
in Numenor.
Yeah. So it has those similar feelings. Even that kind of, it looks like the same kind of structure that has that huge pointy thing coming out of it as well.
That's the sail, they call it in the books, I believe. I think in the book they describe that big pointy part of the mountain sticking through Minas Tirith as the sail. Yeah. So they had
there was cool little things. Even like the second time I watched it, I saw some more details. Like when the ship was going through. The ship was going through that like under the bridge, and it was like there was about a meter. There was not much space.
And it was like closing down. The sails were like closing.
I don't know what they were doing. It looked like one point that they were moving, but then another point it looked like they were staying still. But anyway, there was this kind of curved arch that they were going through, and on either side of the arch there was statues holding up the bridge.
Oh, cool!
Like huge statues, and it looked so cool as well. And it was like the first time I watched it, I just didn't see that at all.
Yeah.
And then the second time, I was like, that's actually a really cool detail. So
these kind of things I'm looking forward to seeing. Behind the scenes and concept art, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. The concept art, every time I see it after watching the scene, I'm like, this is really better than the scene. It's so cool. It's always so class. So that's what happens, and then we get a bit of Galadriel explaining to Halbrand that his ancestors stood with Morgoth, but these people stood with the Valar, and for that reason the Valar granted them this island. And
that was cool.
A
little history lesson.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of history here and there, and like it was like when Celebrimbor mentions Fëanor, maybe it was Elrond that mentioned Fëanor. Well, they both do, and they're talking about the hammer, and they're like so much beauty and so much pain. And then my girlfriend was like, "What the hell was that all about?" And I had to like pause and explain her the whole story, and then she was like,
"Chapter 1, the Silmarillion."
So then she was like, "But why?" Like she was like, "But there's so much information there." I was like, "Yeah, but it's just they don't have the rights to it. They don't have the time to get into all that."
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's just that mention of and so much pain. It's like all of us that know, we're like, that's right.
Yeah,
that's true. So
that
again,
cool.
I like those like small little mentions to the reality of the past. And in this as well, like this land was gifted to them by the Valar for helping them in that war. So that was kind of cool. And she also says that the elves and the people of Numenor used to be, quote, as kin. So we know that they used to be really, really close, obviously. But then just over time, they kind of grew apart, and she says that basically they stopped letting the elves trade with them and whatever. So we see that. And then also we find out that it's been generations since an elf has come to Numenor, since they've had any dealings, and like that's why when she arrives in the port, everyone's like, oh my god, it's an elf.
An elf, so, look over there.
Yeah. It's kind of like at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Rings, like when the Hobbits like, oh my god, elves. Like they're not just everyday creatures. You're not just, if you're a man or a hobbit or something, you're not going to be just, hanging out with the elves from that often, I suppose. So they're kind of,
And it seems like the people of Numenor don't leave the island at all. But,
yeah.
And they mentioned that later, that they never sent, or they haven't sent a ship towards Middle-earth in many a year.
Many a year, yeah. So then they're being guided through the city by Elendil. And just again, my notes are just Elendil's voice, flame. A little flame emoji.
I tweeted this today. I said something like, why isn't everyone talking more about Elendil's voice? And most of the comments were very good. But then, because I said, why aren't people talking more about how it's so deep and mesmerizing? And someone commented underneath saying, because it isn't. And I was like, okay, you can hate the show as much as you want, but you can't hate that voice. Like, that is just unreal.
I want him to do an audiobook.
Yeah.
So then as they're going through the city, we see Halbrand, and he has a little stop and a little look in where?
I don't remember. Is it the Smith? Oh yes, he's looking in there, and this, I suppose, would back up a lot of people's theories of who is he? Could he be Sauron? Now, I think my judgment has shifted on that theory, but I don't know what to take. I don't know what to know, because it's just going to be shifting every episode. The show is definitely throwing out a lot of red herrings. But then as soon as he stops there and he's like, oh, what are they doing? They're crafting something. Is that when he first talks to them? Or
he doesn't talk to them. No, he just has a little look in and he's like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, he clearly is interested in metalwork and
craftsmanship.
And so that is a little bit of a, it's more obvious than later on when he speaks about it, but definitely, as you said, a lot of red herrings. There's been a lot of moments where I'm like, oh, he's definitely this character, and then, no, maybe he's not.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we go to the court, and they've got some big important meeting going on, and we are introduced to the Queen Regent, Muriel, and we're introduced to Chancellor Pharazôn is his title.
Oh, is that what they called him?
Yep.
Oh, right.
The guard stops them and says, I'm sorry, the Queen Regent and Chancellor Pharazôn cannot see you. And then he looks over and he's like, oh my god, it's an elf. He's like, go right ahead.
Yeah, but that was another weird thing. It was like, they're unavailable right now. And I was like, they're right over there. Like, they're literally...
Yeah, but he was just like, oh, they've got some important...
I know, but I just thought they were away in a meeting. Not that they were just like, having a chat right behind them. But yeah, Chancellor. So who's the king?
Well, she's the Queen Regent.
Oh, okay. And her father is the king that's been kicked out, or okay, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there was a kind of I don't know how I feel about Halbrand so far. Not even just about who he is, but the first kind
just of like, do you like him? Or
yeah, I was just like, I didn't like the actor's performance really about that much. I thought he's always got this like smug smile on his face. I think I'm starting to like him more in this episode, especially when he kind of walked in and he just goes, kneel. And then she starts to kneel, and Mira's like, don't kneel. And he's like, sorry.
I did like that part.
So that was kind of funny.
Yeah, where she's like, nobody kneels in Numenor. And he's like, sorry.
I like his whisper of sorry, so that was kind of funny.
I like that, yeah.
And then Galadriel's like, okay, we want to go back to Middle-earth, and we learn from Pharazôn there that it's been generations since that they've done that, or they've sent ships on the behest of an elf. And then Galadriel says, sure, if it wasn't for the elves, you wouldn't even have this island. She gets a bit high and mighty and a bit snooty. And she's clearly not in any way politically, like, she doesn't have any sort of political decorum.
Or diplomacy skills whatsoever.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was one thing I really didn't like from the episode where was the Tarmariel said something about like, well, we spilt a lot of blood over this island, and then Galadriel was like, and let's do it again.
Yeah, she's like, if blood is the price, I'm happy to pay it.
Yeah, I was like, what sort of...
Yeah, she was a bit too...
bloodthirsty in this. Like,
a bit hot and bothered, yeah. So then Halbrand again did something that I liked. He showed his qualities in calming the situation. He was with his charm.
Yeah.
He was very convincing.
Sauron.
Everything he did in this episode, I was like, He's Sauron. He's definitely Sauron. It's just like, like everyone's like really tense and like, and then he just like says something and it really like, everyone's like, I trust this guy.
Yeah. He would say something that has a nice ring to it. No, I'm not saying it. Yeah, there are things in this episode that make me not really like Halbrand's character, or maybe it's just the scenes that he's in. I just didn't enjoy some of them. I think I like the actor's performance, but we'll get into it when I'll bring them up later.
You do that.
In due course.
So then Pharazôn says that he doesn't want to get into an argument or something. I can't remember what he says, but he says with the mighty commander of the northern armies.
Yeah.
And then the whole court like laughs and sniggers. And I'm like, do they not believe her? When like, but I think I was like, then later on,
I think they're laughing at the writers making her the commander of the northern armies.
I didn't really get that. I was like, I'm not, because he's like, oh yeah. And like, I was like, is it because it's so funny that you're the commander of the northern armies and now we are here and we have you? Or is it that like, yeah, sure, we don't believe you that you're the commander?
I think it was a bit of, I didn't look too much into it, but I kind of thought either they don't believe her because she's just some stranded, helpless person, or else it's just that they're so detached from anything that's going on in Middle Earth and it's just like, the northern armies, who cares about whatever that is?
Yeah. It could be.
One or the other, I don't know. I think it was just people laughing because they're like, yeah, who cares?
Yeah. So we shouldn't think too much about it. But anyway, that was also the part where they had the kind of real sort of Game of Thrones thing. Again, Galadriel, I didn't really like Galadriel's whole introduction. I liked when she was saying like of the Golden House of Finarfin.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was cool. But then the whole Commander of the North and you're like kind of Khaleesi and Breaker of
Mother
Chains
of Dragons.
And then there's Jon Snow was like, I'm Halbrand of the Southlands.
Yeah, but I did like. I much preferred the way they construed it in the trailers where it was like, Halbrand. At least this time he goes Halbrand of the Southlands. Yeah, no, and it just made it slightly less common.
I completely agree. Yeah. I completely agree that when I saw it in the trailer, if he just left out Halbrand.
Yeah. They definitely manipulated some things for the trailers to appease to some audience, not us.
Everything they do in the trailer is like, how can we make this shitter?
There is, I'll talk about it later actually when we bring it up. There is one big change that they made in the trailer. I don't know if you caught it, but anyways, we'll get into it.
You can point it out later on.
I will.
So then, obviously, Halbrand wants to show his gratitude to Elendil for saving their lives, and he hugs him and
robs him.
He must have like the greatest sleight of hand that's ever existed because he's wearing. Yeah, I know exactly. I was like Sauron, magic. Because
maybe he just crafted that right.
He's wearing like a rope. There's no like layers or anything. He's got like a rope tying it together, and then it's like he hugs him, and then it's like it's a whole court of people just looking at this happening as well. Everyone's just staring at him. He walks away. He's got nothing in his hand.
I actually never made that connection. That's why he hugs him because that was so weird.
Oh, did you not? Oh,
yeah, no, it makes sense.
Oh, because as soon as I saw him hug him, I was like, "This is where he's going to steal the blade." Because we'd seen that in the trailer as well.
Yeah.
Or maybe we hadn't. Maybe it was Fellowship of Hands.
No, we did.
Yeah, we'd seen that he'd got the dagger, and he gives it back to Galadriel. So I was like, this is obviously the scene where he robs it, but he hugs him, and then it like zooms out, and he's there, and he's just rag. His sleeves are, he's like a magician, rolling up his sleeves, nothing to see here, and it's like he's got the sleeves up. And the dagger is like he can't put it like, anywhere.
He must have just like stabbed it into his back to like conceal it. He was like, "All right, I'm gonna sneak this out."
Maybe it's maybe it was like Die Hard, where he just like gets the tape and sticks it on his.
Maybe.
But I was like, "There's no way he's stolen that. Like that's completely impossible." And then like he just walks up to the other, he's like, "Here you go."
Yeah.
And I was like, "He's Sauron," and then he says, "This is a paradise ripe with opportunity." I was like, Sauron.
He does say that, and that does seem very Sauron. But he also the thing that made me feel like this is just a man. He was like, this place is like a paradise. We should chill out here for a couple of days. And I was like, that doesn't sound like someone with a big horrible plan.
But he's like, this is a paradise ripe with opportunity.
Okay, yeah. But I just was thinking like, that's exactly what I would do. I'd be like, well, Galadriel, chill out. Like, this place is class. We're going to have a couple of beers here. We're probably going to get free food. We're going to be held up in the palace.
They just went through a traumatic, like, near-death experience of being caught in a storm, which maybe he caused. But we don't know. There's definitely parts of this episode I was like, he's got to be Sauron. And I don't want him to be, so then anytime that I see something else, it's like, he isn't, I'm like, that's what I want to believe.
Yeah.
So,
I think I'm I'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I'm going to put this out there now that from this episode, there was loads of things that for me, I was saying, this is Sauron. But I really don't want that to be the case. The same way that I don't want the stranger to be Gandalf. So I'm trying to like find any sorts of... And there are other clues that point to them not being those characters. So, and again...
Would it be weird if Halbrand was Gandalf and the stranger was Sauron? No?
Well, loads of people already think the stranger is Sauron. I don't think anybody thinks the Halbrand is Gandalf.
Halbrand might be Gandalf. Who knows? Who knows?
That's... Yeah, you know, you heard it here first, folks. So then what happens? We get to see Miriel and Farazan have a little chat, and they're like, she's like, who's he now? Who's that little lad? And he tells him that he is a sailor, but he comes from a noble line, and that he has a son who's also going into the sailing world. And you know,
this was another thing we talked about it on our House of the Dragon review, so check that out on Patreon.
Plug.
But just, you know, how is it that this very moment is the first time Tarmiriel brings up who Elendil is? Is that
she's a busy woman. She's got stuff going on.
Right. Well, like what I was thinking was maybe he had been gone on some voyage for a long, long time, and she didn't really know about him until she got to power. So that would make sense. That makes sense. I just worked it out there.
No. You're right. I mean, it is weird because for us, we're like, Elendil is this super important character. But then in here...
supposed to be like 7'5" as well in the books, but obviously they can't find a 7'5" actor.
Gil-galad, he's like 7'5".
Well, I think everyone on Numenor is supposed to be like 7 foot, but anyway.
They're all huge. So then we cut away, and then later when we cut back, we get to see Isildur in training, and that was kind of cool. So he's training to be a
boat man,
a ship.
Yeah, he's trained to be
rider.
A ship driver. Good thing we're not training to be ship drivers anyway.
A shipper.
A shipper, yeah.
What is he? He's a slipper.
He's a sailor.
A sailor, yeah, but I'm trying to find a better word, but yeah. Anyway, no, there's something that he's like in the service of the... I don't know what it is. Anyway.
Welcome to Top Gun. Yeah.
He's a bit of a daydreamer.
Yeah.
Our Isildur. He's a bit like he's got his head in the clouds.
It's a bit of a dreamboat as well.
He is, yeah. He's like his dad.
Dream boat. There you go.
Dream ship. So also, he's there sailing along, and he's supposed to be doing loads of stuff. He's supposed to be like, manning the sail and all that kind of thing. And he just hears this like, Isildur.
What the hell was that?
It was like Middle Earth calling to him. I think. Because he was looking out at the shore. I think that was Middle Earth.
I immediately forgot about that. Wait, that was Middle Earth?
I think so.
I thought that was Numenor.
I don't know, he was just looking at it with this like fondness, and then there's something later on that made me think that it was Middle Earth. But anyway, he's looking at some shore, and he's got desire in his eyes for these lands, and it's like the land is calling to him, and it's like whispering his name, and it was immediately like, that's like the ring saying Isildur in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Because you remember, like...
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There's a scene in it where it's when Gandalf and Frodo were talking about the ring, and it's on the table, you can just hear it going, Isildur. Or something like that. Yeah.
Which is like Sauron in the ring.
Yeah, Sauron in the ring, yeah. So it's like the second time you just hear Isildur's name being like whispered in this kind of creepy, mystic sort of way. But
I immediately forgot about that. I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I didn't think of it until now.
There was loads happened in the episode. So I mean,
there was a lot. It was jam-packed.
Then we get that cool sequence of them learning all the skills, and this one idiot who was called what? Did you hear his name?
Which idiot? The guy that couldn't find the mast or whatever.
The guy that basically pulled the wrong rope and got taken out to sea.
Oh, his name is Imrahil.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like,
that.
Prince?
No, it's obviously not Prince Imrahil.
I know.
But like, it's cool just to hear another familiar
name. And I hope doesn't turn out to be in Prince Imrahil.
Oh, sure, that couldn't be possible.
Yeah, time compression and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah, no, it couldn't be possible.
Because it'd be thousands of years later, but again, time compression, I don't know what's going on. Maybe Imrahil is just like a random name.
Yeah, no, I think like there's lots of names that are used over and over again.
Not Elendil, because we find out that's not a common name.
Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah, true.
So we get to see that, and then also he's a bit of a disaster, and also he's the shipmaster's son, because when they arrive, then so then they arrive in after they've had their little training sequence, which looked like a pretty intense. Like there was like. The boat was like bent over, and they were like flying around this, and there was like they're going so fast, and they're right beside this big huge cliff and rock, and I was like, "Jeez, this looks a bit dangerous."
Yeah,
but obviously some hands-on training. Like, it looks pretty intense. And the guy, the shipmaster, is really intense as well. And I loved
He was cool.
I loved when they came into shore and they dragged in their boats. Also, that was one of the most beautiful overhead shots I've ever seen. It was just looking down and you could see the waves crashing in.
That was
incredible. Yeah. And then you could see them bringing the boats in, and then he just stands and they all turn and they face the sea and he says, "The sea is always right." And that was like, that was so cool. He shouts it and then they all repeat it. But he's like super intense, that guy. And then we meet Isildur's friends, or his buddies. They're like chatting, they're like, "Oh, we've only 9 days left to complete the thing." And they call him Isil.
Oh, right.
They call him, because
it's better than Door.
Isildur.
Yeah.
They're like, Isil.
That scene was, I thought that dialogue was a little bit clunky for me.
Bit weak.
Just a little bit. Well, it doesn't need to be strong, but it just felt very generic and just like, "Oh, 3 days until this thing, and it'll be 8 for you, and it'll be 18 years for this."
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh God!" Like, okay, they're friends.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I didn't think
it was okay. It was only like 2 seconds.
Exactly, it was very short.
But
and then
the next thing we see is the introduction of a new character. Is that
his
what you're
sister.
Well,
I was going to say, then while they're saying like, "Oh, we've 9 days left," and blah blah, and then they were saying, "Oh, Imrahil had a tough go today," and like his father's gonna kill him or something like that. And you looked over and it was the shipmaster having a go at him, and you're like, "Oh, obviously that's father and son there." And then they were like, "Well, Isil could have been with them there because he was daydreaming the whole time," and you're kind of going, right, they call him Isil, and they notice that he's a pure daydreamer as well.
Yeah, okay.
So that happened, but then we get that scene of Eärien, which is Isildur's sister, who's invented for the show as well. And I was worried because initially I thought that she was coming in to take Anarian's place.
Yeah, so we get a name drop of Anarian later, which is great.
We get that later on.
And her name is kind of similar.
Yeah.
Eärien?
Eärien. With the E at the end, yeah. Where is it? Yeah.
I think that, like,
yeah.
I think I saw someone on Twitter trying to break down what it means, and it means something like daughter of the sea, or maybe sister of the sea. I can't really remember.
Sister of Isildur. That's what it means.
Replacement of an Aryan.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit weird. They bring in, it's like in the books, there's a family with 2 children, and they're like, "Let's get rid of one, let's have him off seated, let's bring in another child." Yeah. It's like, you could have just done it with but anyway,
well,
maybe
they might do something with her, like there might be a love scene, or well, not a love scene, but like a love triangle thing going on between her and the sea. No. But yeah, and maybe Anarian is going to be a very important character. I think they talk about him being on the west coast still. Yeah. So maybe that'll be reason for us to see another city in Numenor, which would be cool.
What I think is that I have this in my notes later on, but I might as well just say it now. I think when he says the west coast, he's talking about Middle Earth.
But sure, that wouldn't be the west at all. Oh, the west coast of Middle Earth.
Yeah. Which would be the closest coast to Numenor.
Yeah, well, of course, but I mean,
if you're in Numenor and you sail, you're right on the west coast.
You're in the west in Numenor, then you'd be like the west coast, which is out east. Do you know? It'd be a bit weird. But then again, I was kind of thinking, why is the west coast so far away to them? They did say it's an island. Like,
this is why I'm saying when Elendil mentions Anarian and the west coast, and then the whole thing that I thought it was a sealer. I thought he saw Middle Earth, and that was whispering to him, and he was like, he's got a sense of he wants to go to Middle Earth. Because he wants to leave.
But they said that like no ship has sailed.
No, they said no ship has sailed under the order of an elf for generations.
Okay.
So maybe they still go over and back. Okay. But just it wasn't like under the order or for the benefit of an elf or something. Okay, something to do with an elf. But basically they didn't say anything like that. They don't go over and back.
All right.
But I think that Anarian, against his father's wishes, has gone over to sort of like set up camp in the west of Middle Earth. That's the west coast. And he's kind of been whispering to Isildur to come and join him. And that's why Isildur wants to defer on his joining the ship.
The academy.
Whatever that is. I think he wants to go over. And then he said like, Anarian, he's over in the west and blah, blah, blah. So I think there could be a little story of, I mean, no, I'm not going to give a spoiler for people that haven't read the books in case.
Yeah, okay.
But
Whatever that is, it'll probably be season 2, season 3. Crap.
Yeah, it might come up later on. Hopefully, now that it's been a name drop, he does exist. Hopefully, we'll get to see scenes with Anarion. And again, if it's not in season 1, if it's even season 2, I don't mind. I'm happy to wait for this. I'm happy to play the long game. Sure, we'll see. But when Isildur's sister comes on the scene, there's a funny scene where he's like, that. "Oh, you're here finally!" And he goes up and like hugs his horse.
That was one of the few notes I took down. I was like, I loved that.
I was like, oh, that's such like I definitely do that with Rachel.
Always, go up and hug the car.
Your car, it's beautiful. So also then her sister's obviously good friends with Isildur's friends, and they said to her, "Look who put down the sketchbook for once." So obviously she's like an artist or a designer. And then later on, we find out that she gets accepted by the Builders Guild.
Yeah, the Builders Guild. I think it was. Guild. So she must be an architect.
Maybe she's an architect. So again, I reckon that's not just put in there for no reason. There's probably there's probably some meaning behind this.
Probably.
So anyway, we need to go through this quickly because we're taking an age. But anyway, we see the white tree, which is class, and then we go in and we have this little meeting between Miriel and Elendil, and she says that the faithful believe that when the leaves fall, it signifies that the Valar's tears or something like that. And she says, quote, "Their eyes and judgment are ever upon us." And again, just that little mention of the Valar just made me kind of like, feel all...
Isn't that the scene as well? Doesn't Elendil walk past that statue of, not Ulmo, I can't remember the Valar. There's a statue of some person and their hair is going into the water.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Guys, drop a comment on who that is because I don't know who it is.
We haven't a clue. But that's the part where then she quizzes Elendil as to whether he's a friend of an elf or not. Because also Miriel, she seems really wise. And
that was
smart.
Cool when she's talking about his name.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, it's an uncommon name. Never heard that one before." Haha, I know what it means. Yeah, so she was like, "What does it mean?" He was like, "It means lover of the stars or something." And she was like, "I think it means something else, you snake." And then he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, it does mean elf friend." And she's like, "And are you one?" Because I don't know.
Arion?
So that was kind of cool. I like that. And then she said elves have not been welcomed since her grandfather's great-grandfather. So get out your calculator.
her grandfather's great-grandfather.
Yeah. So it'll be...
Is that great-great-great-grandfather?
It would be grandfather with 3 greats in front of it.
Oh, right, cool, yeah. Great-great-great-grandfather, yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
So, I was like, how many grandfathers?
Great grandfather's son's great grandfather.
Yeah. My sister's son. You're like, wait a minute. These Numenorians and their crazy speech. Then Elendil says that he believes that the sea put her in his path for a reason, and then, which is cool, he's like, the sea is I was going to say the sea is never wrong. He says the sea is always right. And that's what they had been quoted before. So like, he's obviously gone through that same training, lived his life in his thing, and that's just their mantra. Like, the sea
they're just
is
obsessed
always
with
right.
the sea.
They love
all they see is the sea. So they're like, the sea is always right. But my lord, it's also left. Shut up.
So... I mean, that's cool. I liked how you just like the sea. It was the sea.
Yeah, exactly.
The sea did it. So, and then he gets threatened with treason, as we said before. But then suddenly he gets promoted and he gets given...
Oh yeah, sword. What was that about?
I think it's Narsil.
What?
I think that's Narsil.
Ah, no.
I think so.
It could be, but like, why?
What do you mean, why?
I wanted to look like Peter Jackson.
No, I don't have the rights to it.
Yeah, okay.
So that was the sword that we saw in the promotion, the first promotion things that dropped with all the hands, and there's...
Is there a horse on it, or is that a different sword?
No, there's the big sun.
Oh, yeah.
Like the image of...
Like a Isildur's sigil, kind of. Well, a Isildur is like...
No, an Arian's.
Oh, sorry, an Arian. Oh, God, I'm getting all mixed up. Isildur is the moon man.
Moon man.
The moon man.
And an Arian's the sun man. He's the sun.
Isildur's son. Or... Elendil.
We're getting all confused here. Anyway, that's when it cuts away, and so when it cuts back again, we see Galadriel escaping from the guards, very much like Aladdin style. I thought it was like
got those vibes.
Where did she go? And
they had to make it clear that it wasn't the first time it's happened. Like, oh well, maybe where she went the last time or something like that.
Yeah, they were like, oh, I'm not telling whoever, I'm not telling the Queen. And he's like, oh, well, I did it last time.
Yeah.
So
that was, again, I just find that kind of dialogue a bit clunky where you hear people talking about experiences they had in the past. I'm like, go on.
So anyway, she is looking to try and escape, and she's eyeing up the boats. And then Elendil has a little conversation with her, which was class.
That was cool, yeah.
And also, I loved how he's like, I can't remember what he says to her, but then he says something like, he says, what if I call the guards over there? And then she like whips out her dagger, really like Legolas style, has this like little spinny around the fingers, and she like holds it like this.
Looks very pointy.
Yeah, well, it's dagger.
I know, but like from all the other clips I saw, it just
I have circular daggers.
But yeah, that was cool. I think that scene is during that speech or that dialogue. Elendil says something like, "You have." What does he say? Like my daughter has the eyes. What does he say? He says something about like his daughter
is eyes of a fox.
I don't know. What he says is like, my daughter is always trying to run away and my son is always trying to do something else, but you have the eyes of them both, or something like that.
Yeah.
He's basically calling her rash, but also reasonable.
She has a rash. He says, let me see, do I have it written down here? No. My notes say that
Elendil speaks to Galadriel.
No, I said Elendil suggests that she runs fast and blind, because he
says my daughter. He said my daughter runs, and my son runs blind.
Exactly, and he says, and in your eyes I can see
both
the eyes of them both, or something like that. Yeah, so he's suggesting that she's
big nerd.
He's suggesting that she's basically, just moving quickly and without knowing where she's going. Yeah, because he says to her, look, if you go and you try and steal that boat, I'm going to call the guards. You're going to get locked up and you're going to be in prison, and you're going to be further away from your your target than you are now. So just think about it for a minute. Yeah. So he's very wise, Elendil.
He is.
Have we mentioned his voice?
No, I don't think so.
We like it.
It's class.
It's good. So then he just sort of brings up horse riding all of a sudden. He's like, it's about a half a day's ride to our house of lore.
She's like, did you say ride?
Did you say ride?
Which is really... reminded me of all those funny memes, especially with Aragorn saying ride hard. I was like, this is going to be another meme.
Definitely going to be a meme.
Did you say ride?
Yeah. So then...
with a really weird shot after that.
Of her.
Yeah,
I was like, is that her?
Yeah.
She looked horrible.
Well, she looked fine, but it just didn't look like Galadriel.
I know, it didn't look like her, and it looked kind of just unflattering. It looked like her face is all like been mushed back by the window.
It was slow-mo, and she's been so like not regal, but she's been so like stoic throughout the whole show, where she's not showing too much friendly emotion.
Big smile on her face.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, I love horse riding.
Exactly.
Freeze frame on her face.
I believe that's probably my face every time I'm going downhill on a bike. I was like, I'm just a big huge smile on my face. I'm like, this is class. I always forget how much I love going downhill on a bike. And then you're like, now I gotta go uphill. I hate a bike.
Yeah. Stupid bike.
So she was having a great time. And I thought there was loads of cool slow motion shots, especially the hooves on the sand. I was like, oh, that's so cool. It's super slow-mo. So, and again, the one that we'd seen before of just behind the horse, the white horse with her like wavy
dress thing whipping the horse's ass. Yeah,
that was class. So she was having a great time, and in that scene we get also these stunning overhead shots. We get one that kind of reminded me of the Cliffs of Moher, because it's got this like little stump on the end, and just absolutely beautiful cinematography there. It was so gorgeous.
Sorry, almost knocked a lamp.
We'll get back into it. So that was class. Then we see Halbrand, and he says that he's here. This is when he's going visiting the Smiths, the Smiths, and he says that he's here to start anew, and that he's the best on the island at crafting.
Did he say that?
He said basically, if you let me do this, I'll craft it better than anything you've ever seen.
Oh wow, jeez, I did not pick up on that. Sauron. Yeah, I just didn't love this tiny little mini storyline. It was kind of like
with the lads.
Yeah, well, just even before that, it was kind of like a video game sequence where it's like, yes, my lad, you can craft here if you have one of these gold coins.
Go find the coin.
And then you're like, okay, now I have to go and trick some lads into getting the coin.
Mini mission.
Yeah, so I just thought that was a little bit daft, and they're going to recognize him it's not like he went through some workshop and earned this coin. They're going to be like, did you just steal that coin?
You got that in like an hour.
It says like Benethor on it.
So then it cuts to him having a few mussels, and
that looked tasty.
Did look good, nice bowl of mussels. And then
this scene confused me. I thought it was nice and it was tasty. He was just like having a couple of mussels and a pint, but the whole time I was thinking, was he given some cash by like?
I didn't know where he got the money from.
Yeah, and he was like, you know what?
Well, maybe that thing he carries around his neck. Maybe he's got cash in there.
I know, but like he's literally got not enough money for clothes, and then he's like, "I'll buy the next few rounds for everyone here."
There was loads of people there.
Yeah, it was a bit weird.
So he's in there anyway, and obviously there's a bit of animosity, and they're like, "Oh, you're the guy that arrived with the elf. We don't like elves, and we don't think we like you, and you're here taking our jobs and blah blah." They're like, "What are you going to take next?" He was like, "You're women."
I like that.
That was kind of cool. I like that too. Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, look at the mouth on this lad," and then
the mouth again, of Sauron.
Something with Sauron, definitely. And then they sit down beside him, and they're getting really tense. He's like, "Friends," he's like, or whatever he says. He like taps on the back, and again diffuses the situation, uses his charm, uses his kind of influence again,
true.
Cuts to like, he says, "Oh, the next few rounds are on me." And there's loads of people there, and it cuts to the next scene where he's finishing up his pint. They've obviously had a few. They're all best buddies now, and he's like, "All right, lads, I'm out of here now." And he steals the little brooch or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he's leaving it, and there's like about 40 people. They're like, "See you later, Albrand. Thanks for all the pints." So he must have bought like about 300 beers, like however he afforded that. But anyway, again, I was like, okay, he went in, nobody liked him, and suddenly, like, he's the talk of the town. So I'm like, Sauron. So hopefully not.
Like, in fairness though, Sauron should be one of the most hated and feared villains of all time, but if this is him in his early days, geez, I'd love to be his mate because he seems like a bit of crack.
Oh, he'd be great crack, I'm sure.
Imagine getting loads of pints off Sauron and finding out years later he's the one that like nearly doomed Middle Earth.
You're like,
geez, I had a few good pints at that lad.
He must have gone around after that. He was a great lad back in the day.
Must have been a bad pint.
And then obviously the guys catch up with him and they're like, "Yeah, you just stole my degree. Give it back." And
I wear my degree on my chest for some reason.
Yeah. And so what happened then, Dave?
Oh yeah, so this scene was crazy to me because they were going to do the whole bullying thing, and I really did think they were just going to beat him up, and that was a huge shock to me that he just turned around and bet the crap out of them. And that was probably one of the scenes where I thought, now it probably isn't Sauron because he's not using any magical powers, he's just beating them up like a man, and so he might be some secret man that we don't know of, and he's got some secret past, but that it didn't make me feel like he was Sauron. But my god, it was gruesome. The first punch, I think there's blood splatter on the screen, and
was there?
There was definitely one punch where like he punched someone, there was blood, and they had like that effect on the screen, which I thought was kind of gruesome. And then the arm thing, oh god, puts the arm against.
But before he hits him in the arm, he like shoves him 3 times in the neck.
Yeah,
like he backs him up. He's like dot 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 in the neck with like the edge of his hand into the neck 3 times, and the guy gets shoved up against the door, and then he just takes his arm, puts it up against the doorway, and snaps his arm, like his forearm, in half. And again, that was class. It was class.
Yeah, it was so.
Unnecessary.
It didn't take me out of it, but I just felt like I wasn't watching The Rings of Power. I thought it was more of a Witcher or Game of Thrones type of thing.
No, it wasn't a compound fracture. We didn't get to see any bone sticking out of the arm,
no.
Which would have been next level, I suppose. But it was pretty damn gross. It was the same as kind of like just seeing like the Harfoot's ankle snap.
Yeah, even
just
that
kind of like even the sound of them is like, and you're like, oh man.
And I, for one, hate that kind of thing. Like one of my mates, shout out to Gary, he's always like sending me videos of, you know, I know it before I open it. It's like, man in gym does leg press.
Oh
like,
no,
disgusting. Or
I hate those
or
things.
Like just something like a football related injury. Someone's leg comes halfway off. Oh, I can't. I can never watch that.
No, not at all. So then we flash over to back to Elendil and Galadriel. They're in the House of Lore and they're looking, and it turns out that the symbol is a map. After all,
which we all guessed at some point.
I was kind of hoping it wasn't, because I was like, I'd rather just be a mysterious symbol and it's cool.
I was satisfied with that because I kind of expected that's what it would be, and I kind of felt like if it wasn't that, then it's annoying how similar it is.
Yeah.
And I think there are already enough mysteries in this show to keep us wanting more. Like, we've got who is Adar, who is Sauron, who is
sure.
the stranger. There's so many things.
There's loads of stuff, yeah. Now, that is one thing that I would say is it should be put down as a good point for this show, that basically it's appealing to a wide audience, and even people like us who have read everything, we still don't know what's going on. So that's cool.
Yeah, I do think that's good, yeah.
Now, maybe we might not be, we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, we might hate it.
We might hate the answer. We might hate the way that it turns out.
But it's good for now.
It's good for now, yeah. So we'll put it down as a potential good point.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying the ride so far.
Me too.
And I'm enjoying, but like, again...
Did you say ride?
Yeah.
No, I'm
enjoying the half-day ride. So, also, I think at the end of every episode so far, well, not episode 1 because I saw episode 2 straight afterwards, but after episode 2, I was like, I can't wait for the next episode. And after today's episode, I was like, I can't wait for the next episode.
Can't wait for the next one.
So, again, that's... I mean, any sign of this is a good show, is a bad show. There are certain things that are good that I like, there are certain things that I don't like. But in general, all week I'm just like, I can't wait for the next episode.
Yeah.
So
especially this one, because they had to cut it at Adar. And I was like, just show me his face, because I know the actor as well, something Maul. He's the guy, he plays Benjen Stark in Game of Thrones. That actor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's pretty cool.
He is cool.
And he's the only actor I knew before this show started, apart from Elrond. But yeah.
Also Game of Thrones.
Also Game of Thrones.
So that's class. So anyway, yeah, we find out that it is actually a map of Mordor, which we kind of all suspected. And we get a few name drops here, which is class. Well, we get one particular one, which Galadriel says, like, you did not tell me that the House of Lore was made by Elros.
Yeah.
And you're like, Elros!
Yeah, that was really cool.
And then we see the tapestry. I loved it.
The tapestry, I loved it as well. Actually, I think somebody on Twitter put up a screenshot of that, where it shows Elendil, Galadriel, and then in the background Elros, Elrond, and then the Star of Eärendil. And it was just so cool. They said something like, who would have ever thought we got a still frame of like all these characters in the one shot? And I was like, that is class.
That's deadly, yeah. That's really, really cool. But I was like, Elendil must be like freaking out right now, because he's with Galadriel, who like knows and is friends with the people on the tapestry, and is like the person who started their kingdom.
Numenor, yeah.
He's like, you're friends with the brother of the guy, and you knew the king like thousands of years ago. This is like, I'm freaking out right now.
Yeah, exactly. Can I get your autograph?
Yeah, he must be shitting his pants.
But I assume they're just making it so that Elrond and Elros aren't identical twins, because they didn't look anything like in that tapestry.
Did Elros have a beard?
Yeah, he did. He did. He had a beard there, and
Is he Círdan?
I was wondering if they were to ever show a flashback of Elros, would it be Robert Aramayo?
Yeah, well, obviously not now.
Obviously not now. They'll just hire.
But that was so good. I was kind of like, it wasn't very realistic, the tapestry as well, and like it's cool because tapestries are kind of cartoony. So So it looked classic. I really liked it, and also they were separated, the brothers, and they were like, Elrond was going with these guys, and Elrond was like, I'm going over here. So it was really cool. I really liked that. Yeah. So big thumbs up for that. What else? Galadriel's just having a great time. She loves this place. She's like, this is absolutely class.
The place was cool.
It was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot. And Elendil explains that the king was removed from power because he was loyal to the elves. And also because he was loyal to the elves, that's why he kept this House of Lore. So this is the king that's currently like locked away in power.
I didn't understand that as well. He was like, well, you can thank the king for this, because this is the reason why this place is still here.
Surely that king's father could have got rid of it, because...
And his father.
Yeah,
and his father. It was like
great,
the last 1,000 years or whatever, how long it's been of Numenor.
Yeah.
They could have all taken it down, but it's like, no, you can thank the most recent guy.
Yeah, that was a bit weird.
Yeah,
but anyway, we find out that that guy, the current king that's just been removed, he obviously is loyal to the elves. So
and that reminded me of Sauron. No, it seriously did, because they were like, they say that he's locked in his tower.
A flaming eye.
No, but we know, like in the books, Sauron during the events of Lord of the Rings is just
pacing
in his tower, and he said something like, exiled in his own kingdom, and I thought that was cool. There was some cool dialogue in
There was some cool dialogue. We did enjoy it. What else? Then we see that they find an old text in black speech that just some randomer apparently drew and then escaped from captivity.
Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah. And in black speech, which Galadriel obviously reads, she was like, there's a plan to create a realm for the evil to thrive, and this is all in the event of Morgoth's defeat. His successor should create this land. It's like, all right, well, that's the whole plan that we've just got spelled out for us here.
Okay.
So that's great. And then we cut to Elendil having drinks with his children.
Okay.
And this is the final kind of part there, I think. Well, no, there's another couple of little bits. But anyway, mentions in Aryan, which we said, and again, we spoke about this earlier, but I've written down here that it seems that he could be the reason that Isildur wants to delay his career. So that's what I thought. And Elendil says that there's nothing for us on our western shores. And I don't know, like, it would make sense if it's Numenor, but I just, for some reason, there's something, again, maybe I'm way off, but I just kind of got this idea that it was the western shores of Middle-earth. But, I don't know. And we'll see that play out.
That will come into fruition.
It will.
Or to fruition.
Both.
Both
is good. And then he says the watery parts of the world have ways of healing the deepest of wounds.
I thought that was weird.
He says that to Isildur, and Isildur responds, "The way it's healed yours."
yeah. This dialogue,
like,
I found that kind of weird. First, when he said the word "watery," I just thought that was a weird
the
word.
watery places of the world. You mean the sea, Dad? You've been, voyaging on the seas for all your life.
It just reminds me
the watery places. The bath.
It reminds me of, like, sometimes when you and I are, doing a podcast and we get stuck in our words, or I even mentioned to you today, I couldn't think of the word for shortcut. And I was like, that quick maneuver you do when you're doing something. Yeah, but the watery places of the world. What? The toilet, Dad? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a sassy response by Isildur.
So obviously there's something going on there. There's something...
trouble in paradise.
Isildur obviously had... some healing that he wanted to try and or some hurt done to him, I suppose, that he was hoping that the sea would heal, but obviously it hasn't done that. Aryan then gets the news that she is to join the Builders Guild, and she got in, and
the Guilders Build.
The Builders Guild. Then Halbrand's in jail for his atrocities of horribly making us look at that arm break.
Jesus.
Then
just thinking of it now.
And Galadriel has found the symbol that Halbrand wears also in that House of Lore. She's like, that thing that he wears around his neck. She's like, haha, I found this, and it means that you're the king of someplace in the Southlands.
Yeah.
And
now, this, first of all, the first thing I thought of, I don't know about you, was this sounds exactly like Aragorn's storyline. Especially Aragorn from the films, where he doesn't want to be king or whatever. He's kind of...
I do not want it.
Yeah, I do not want it. Kind of a Jon Snow. But one thing that I wanted to say out of this episode that made me feel very positive is, yes, Halbrand was Sauron the whole way through. But this was the first time where I was like, oh my god, he could be, this could be the Witch King. Because he's, supposed to be the king of this land.
Yeah.
And he's got evil in his heart and he's running. And maybe he goes back to the Southlands, and that's where Sauron, traps him, gives him a ring, does whatever. And, I just think the fact that they brought up the whole king thing, and he's definitely not going to be king of the Southlands.
You're saying the Witch King, definitely a possibility. When he said that, I was kind of going, I wonder if he's Camul.
The Easterling?
Yeah, because, the Southlands, they're called the Southlands, but they're in the east as well, kind of.
Yeah.
Mordor is in the east.
Yeah.
And Southlands is what Mordor is.
No, I know. I would have always called Mordor the East as well.
So I think that would be cool as well, because, I think maybe... I don't know.
But why would he be... he's not an Easterling now.
But maybe he is,
He's in here. No, but, I would have just assumed Camul... why would you assume Camul over the Witch King? Camul, I would have assumed was, born and raised...
Because maybe Adar is going to be the Witch King.
Well, yeah, maybe, yeah. Well, yeah. We will find out. What do you guys
I heard
think? Let us know what your thoughts are.
Obviously, lots of debate in the comments. We want to hear that as well. I watched something with the Tolkien professor a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that basically he plays this little game when he's watching the show, and it's called Dead or Nazgul. And it's like all the characters, all the human characters, he's like, is this person going to be dead or going to be a Nazgul?
Oh, that's clever, yeah.
And then he was talking about like your one, what's her name? Theo's mother. Bronwyn. Yeah, he's like, it's weird. We're kind of going, I hope she ends up dead.
Yeah,
it's the nicer of the two things to hope for. So yeah, I definitely think that's the way my brain is going in the show. When I see Theo, I'm like, doesn't look good for you, buddy. No. Doesn't look good at all. He's there like staring into fires and his
blood has been sucked into the sword.
Well, we didn't talk about that. The way the blood got sucked up is obviously in last week's episode. But anyway, where are we? So Halbrand, King of the Southlands. So maybe he's going to be a Nazgul because even it could be the Witch King, it could be Camul, or it could be just another one because we don't. This is an area where they definitely can. Fill up the lore. We don't know what happened to. We only have 2 names for any of the Nazgul, and we are told that some of them were kings and some of them were just sort of men's.
There was 3 that were power. Lords in Numenor.
That's right. Yeah.
One was Camul the Easterling, and we know the Witch King.
Yeah.
Any other names?
No, they're the only names that we have. So we've got space there to have other kings of other regions.
Yeah.
So,
but I just think that there's no coincidence. When I heard King for Halbrand, I was like, has to be Ian.
Yeah, the big one.
And I hope so. I really hope that.
I'd like that.
I think that would be nice. That'd be good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd do well as an Nazgul.
That'd be a good position.
Yeah.
So also, another thing that made me kind of get off the Sauron bandwagon for Halbrand, which I want to, is when he admits that his ancestors were loyal to Morgoth, and I don't think Sauron would say that.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think Sauron would be like, they're trapped talking to Galadriel, who's like, one of the Eldar, saying, did you know that my ancestors were loyal to Morgoth?
Yeah,
she'd be like,
Well, he's been hiding so much ever since we met this character, and this was him opening up to Galadriel, and he was like saying,
it seems genuine.
This is what I fear. Like, my ancestors were, they worked with Morgoth, and like, this is something I am ashamed of, genuinely.
Like you said, like Aragorn's character in the movies as well, where he's worried about the weakness in his blood.
The same blood of Isildur runs through my veins. Exactly. And unless this again is master manipulation by Sauron, which would be cool, because then he'd be
manipulation. It would be deadly name for an album.
Yeah, it would actually. But he's thrown off Galadriel, but he's also thrown off us because the way TV shows and things are written normally, you'd be like, yeah, this is a genuine moment where he's opening up to the main character. So yeah, if he's thrown us all off, then kudos Halbrand.
I don't know. There's so many times I'm like, he's definitely like. There's so many times during this episode I was like, God damn it, he is Sauron, isn't he? And then
but isn't this great?
Yeah, I know it's good.
It's good.
I'm enjoying the speculation. Yeah. How about you guys? Are you enjoying the speculation? Let us know.
Well, I'm enjoying this conversation as well because this is the first time we've had a chat, and this is class. Like I like pondering over who's Sauron, who's the Witch King, and Camul has been thrown into the mix as well.
Camul. Right, let's get on with it because we're nearly finished.
Nearly there.
Then the final part is we get these beautiful, gorgeous nighttime views of Numenor, these overhead shots. We get that, again, that big thing that you said was called the sail. We get a view from like above that and that view of that statue with his hand outreached. And that was one part where I paused it a couple of times and I had to have a little look at the houses with their lights on. And
is that Elros, that statue?
I don't know. Like, I mean, maybe.
There wasn't a name on it. Yeah.
They weren't like, look, it's Elrond. So, again, it could be, but we're yet to hear. Maybe we'll find out at some point. But we get those views, and then we see Miriel going up to the tower to speak to her father, and she says, it's here. The moment we feared, the elf has arrived. And that's the end of the episode. So,
and that was the thing that I wanted to say. That was the big deviation from the trailer, because in the trailer, they changed the words, and it's sorry, can you repeat it again?
It's here, the moment we feared, the elf has arrived.
No, but does she not say it's here, father? She says father.
She says father, and then she says it is here.
Oh, okay, but in the trailer she goes, it is here, Galadriel. the moment that we have feared, and then it cuts it, and then it shows them with the Palantir.
Yeah.
So
exactly. When I saw her going up the stairs to the tower, I was like, "Are we going to get to that Palantir scene already?"
I thought so. Yeah. I was hoping so, but yeah.
And it would make sense that she's like, "I immediately trust you, and I'm going to show you about the Palantir stuff."
But like, yeah, I thought that's what. But when she goes, "It is here," she didn't say Galadriel. And that hurt you. That hurt you. It hurt me.
Maybe she'll just say the exact same thing in the next episode when she's talking to Galadriel.
They play it out again. Like maybe she's talking to her father and Galadriel. She's playing both sides.
Yeah. Everyone's playing both sides. There's a lot of that going on. So, Dave, general thoughts on this episode. Where would you rank it against the first 2 episodes?
The big thing for me was that there obviously weren't any dwarven scenes, and there weren't any Linden/Eregion scenes, so no elvish, like real good elvish stuff. But I think actually
no Elrond, no Durin, no Disa.
Like, and one of the things was we saw a lot of this footage from the trailers, and I kind of felt like I kind of knew what was going to happen next the whole time. But it wasn't until like the episode finished, and yes, I really want to know what's going on with Adar, that I just really looked back and I was like, there was so much to unpack there. And look at this podcast, we're going on for this nearly 2 hours long.
Oh my god.
I know, this is going to be tough to put out today, but yeah. There's so much in this, and it was really good. All the orc stuff was class. Maybe the Harfoot stuff was the weakest part of the episode, but still good. Like, still we needed to...
Some stuff happened.
Yeah, stuff happened. And Numenor was incredible.
Oh,
loved it.
Beautiful.
Loved it.
Beautiful.
I did think there was some of the dialogue that I've already brought up in this episode has been a little bit clunky, but that's not from any of the important characters. It's just like
secondary characters, or random guards.
Yeah, random guards, or like, the people that are talking to Halbrand, and I don't mind that. It's just it just felt more TV show clunky dialogue, but other than that, yeah, loved it. What about yourself?
Yeah, same as you. Yeah, I think it kind of like flew past for me this episode. It was so when I turned it on, I was like, oh, it's 68 or 69 minutes or something that long. So I was like, oh, it's a long one, but it felt so short. It was really, I don't know, it's kind of, well, I suppose that's probably a good thing as well. But maybe I was 1 or 2 moments where I was a little bit bored during the Harfoot scenes. But everything in Numenor was so class. I really enjoyed the orcs, as I said before. But as you said as well, that whole set, that whole set where the orcs had their little thing, that was way cooler as well than I had expected. Yeah. And also, I'm just really looking forward to having full episodes where I don't know any single scene of what's going to happen. Yeah. Because I always hate when, I don't know, like when you're watching the very first episode and you see, what's his name? Flipping, the elf.
Arondir?
Arondir. I was about to say Anarion, and I was like, no. So when you see Arondir in the very first episode, you're like, you're going to get captured by the orcs. Yeah. And you're like, that's going to happen. And then you're like, and I know you're going to escape because I know that you're going to, but or you've seen people and you're like, I know you're going to end up in this place. But
we've covered a lot of what we've seen in the trailer.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I really want to get past that. Or like certain characters where you're like, well, I know you can't die in this moment because I've seen you already later on in a different place. So I just, for that reason, you know me, that like when a new movie is coming out that I really want to see, very often I'll just avoid all trailers at all because I don't want at any point during the movie to think I already know this character is going to be in a different place at a certain time, because I don't even want to have that in my mind. So I'm looking forward to not having any of that to deal with again. And there was nothing that let me down really in this episode in terms of what I was looking forward to. I was looking forward to seeing Numenor, and I think it lived up to it. The music was class, the visuals were stunning. We already mentioned that the warg, the CGI wasn't maybe the best at moments, but apart from that, the CGI has looked incredible. I was looking at Numenor, I paused it various times. I was like, I don't know if this is CGI or if it's a model, maybe it's a combination of both, but I was like,
can't wait to see.
Yeah, can't wait to see behind the scenes is going to be class. So yeah, for me, also, sorry, I wanted to mention that the first 2 episodes were directed by one person.
JJ Bayona, isn't it?
Maybe it was Bayona, yeah. But this one was directed by a new person, and I think the next 2 or 3 episodes are all directed by this person who directed this episode. So I think it's maybe the first 2 by JJ Bayona, then there's maybe 3 or 4 by this director, and then there's another director for the final 2 or something like that. Nice. So maybe the next couple episodes we're going to get a similar feel to this one as well, which is something to note too.
Definitely more Numenor anyways, but yeah, great. That's
more Numenor.
Numenor.
are thirsty!
Yeah, that's all we have time for today. Thanks everyone so much for listening and for watching if you're watching on YouTube. But please let us know your thoughts. We've pondered over so many theories. Who the hell is Sauron? Who the hell is the Stranger? And Adar? Give us all your thoughts on that and let us know if we missed anything as well. We've already talked about how this, well, we didn't rank it, but I would like to see you guys rank this episode in comparison to the other two. Is it the best? Is it the worst? Does it fall in between? But again, huge thank you to all you guys on Patreon and especially to Jack Knightley there too. If you guys want to sign up, we'll leave we'll leave all the links in the description. And don't forget that we are covering the House of the Dragon and we'll be doing reviews every episode that comes out. So that's really exciting, that's really fun. We're doing quite not in depth as these ones, but we're
getting into it.
We're getting into it, yeah. They're good like half an hour long episodes, I suppose. But don't forget to please like, subscribe, and tell your friends and everything on YouTube because...
Tell your mums,
tell your husbands.
And book club. Get her to go to her book club and spread the word.
Exactly, because we want to grow the YouTube channel. We're happy with the podcast, but we want some more YouTube love. But yeah, we'll see you next time. And next time we might have a special guest on the show as well, so keep an eye out for that.
We might, and we will.
But we might not.
But we will see.
And we won't. Okay.
It's our mom.
Until next time, guys.
See you guys.
Thank you very much and goodbye.